Hello detectives, and welcome to my video for December. It is nearly Christmas. I'm about to go on my holidays and of course I am wearing a very suitable Christmas jumper. And I'm here to give you my final recommendation video for the year. I'm going to be telling you about some of the books that I have picked for my own friends and family to give this Christmas, and some books that I think you will really enjoy either getting for yourself or giving to your loved ones. The first book I have chosen this month is the incredible picture book Look Up by Nathan Bryon and illustrated by Dapo Adeola. And this is the story of a girl called Rocket who loves the universe around her. She's fascinated with space and she is desperate for her older brother to look up from his phone and be as interested and engaged with the universe as she is. There is a meteor shower coming and she's desperate to go see it, but she really wants her brother to come with her so they can share in what they see together. It is the most beautiful book. It is so wonderfully illustrated. It's wonderfully written. It's full of really interesting facts about space that some of the older children will like. And it's also got a great cat character here that I think any child will love. This is perfect for anybody 1+, but I would say all the way up to sort of 4 or 5. People who love space, who love the world around them, who are curious and interested, just like Rocket. It really is the most special picture book. I did a shift at Round Table Books in Brixton this month, and when I was there I sold more copies of Look Up than any other book because I think it is just so special and it is so applicable to almost any child. So again, this is Look Up, a picture book for 1+. The next book is one that I've been recommending to all of my friends who love fantasy ever since I first read it in October, and it is Frances Hardinge's Deeplight. Now, Frances Hardinge is one of my favourite authors. I think she's one of the most interesting and impressive authors working at the moment. Every single one of her books is almost completely different from every single one of her other books. She has written a book set in the Civil War about a ghostly bear. She has written one set in an alternate universe, 1920s, where changelings are real. She's written a Victorian mystery story. She is absolutely fantastic. You can tell how much I love her, and so you can tell what a big deal it is for me to say that I think Deeplight is my favourite book of hers that I have ever read. I think it is that good. It is set in another world, a world of islands, and sort of an island nation. And this world was ruled over by a series of terrifying deep sea gods. Gods who could get very angry, gods who could submerge whole islands, who could eat hundreds of people at once, who would unleash terrible things on their followers, basically their worshippers, until one day 20 years ago when the gods were killed. They all died. This massive cataclysm happened and nobody quite knows what happened, and they're all still reeling from all of their gods suddenly dying. This is a world where the gods are dead, which is the most fantastic beginning to a fantasy novel I think I can imagine. This book is also about how damaging and difficult friendships can sometimes be, how scary the sea is, because I really do believe that it is terrifying. Frances will make you believe that the sea is terrifying. It is the most intelligent, most interesting book. I absolutely loved it. I love her writing. This is the one for you if you like fantasy fiction, really interesting, deep fantasy fiction. And I would say this is for anybody 12+. It is a YA novel, but it is a YA novel that adults can and should enjoy as much as younger readers. So everybody, go read Deeplight. Give Deeplight to your friends if you like fantasy fiction. There is one book this year that all of my friends on Twitter and Instagram were talking about more than any other. And it took me a while to actually sit down and read it, because sometimes when there's a lot of hype around a book, it turns out to be not quite as wonderful as I was hoping. But in this case, I was really pleasantly surprised because it was actually even better than I expected it to be. And so my pick for anybody who loves romance fiction, who loves science fiction, who loves books that are deeply twisty and interesting and unfold with every page until you find out on the last page really what the book was about and the trick that the author was playing on you all along, or authors in this case, is This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal Mohtar and Max Gladstone. Now, this is a really unusual book. It's a very thin book. You'll get through it in a couple hours if you are a quick reader. It is written by these two authors, and they are each taking the part of one time-traveling operative. And Blue and Red are sent by their respective owners, operators, basically, sent through time to twist time and space into the way that their side of this time war wants, so their side can win. And they start off fighting each other. They start off hating each other and hating everything that the other one stands for. But when they suddenly get in contact in the middle of one of their time battles, things start to shift. They start to strike up a conversation and then a friendship, and then the friendship deepens to so much more. And ultimately, they realize that what they're doing is they're no longer trying to win the war for their side. They are trying to lose the war so they can be with each other. It is such a clever concept. It is such an interesting concept, and it is done so, so well. Every single sentence of this book is beautiful and interesting. You want to linger over it for a long time. As I say, the book is short. You could read it quickly, but I read it really slowly because I didn't want it to finish because it was just that beautiful and interesting and clever. And there really is a very good twist in the tale of this book. You're taken on a roller coaster ride with Blue and Red. As I say, I cannot praise this book highly enough. It is absolutely phenomenal. It's one of the cleverest uses of time travel, of science fiction, and it also really is a romance novel, a very, very satisfying romance. And so if you love stories where people fall in love, you will not be disappointed by this book. I would say this is for sort of about 13, 14 plus. There are some very violent scenes, very upsetting scenes, a lot of stuff, of course, because by their very nature, Blue and Red are trying to kill people because they're fighting a war, a lot of quite upsetting battle scenes. So not for somebody who is quite an anxious person, I would say, somebody who doesn't really like gore and violence. But if you're okay with that, I would say really try to read this book because it is just phenomenal. I've given this to a lot of people this Christmas. It is perfect for, I think, almost anybody. So This Is How You Lose the Time War, one of the most exceptional books I have read this year. And finally, the book that you should give to all of your bookworm friends and family members, the book for anyone who says that they get lost in the stories they read, who loves literature and stories and storytelling, is The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. Now, The Starless Sea is the second book by Erin. Erin wrote a book called The Night Circus a while ago, and this is her follow-on to it, but it's not connected. It's not the sequel. It is a very different book. You can read this without having read The Night Circus. And this book is about a secret subterranean, which means underground world called the Starless Sea, that you go if you want to know about stories, if you want to spend your life with stories. There are doors dotted around our world, the world that we all live in today. Doors that if you open them and go through, you can get down to the Starless Sea, an endless library. And once you get down there, you make a choice. There's one of three paths you can take, and those three paths, which one you take determines your fate, determines the rest of your life. Now you're going to go live down in this Starless Sea. And the story starts with a boy who saw one of these doors when he was a child, but he missed his chance to go through it. He spent his childhood years, his teenage years in the normal everyday world. Now he's at university, and he realizes suddenly that he has missed that chance. And he realizes he wants to get down into the Starless Sea. He wants to go find the fate that he sort of missed out on because he didn't go through that door. And it is very hard for him to do that because as he's trying to get into it, the Starless Sea, the secret world, it is crumbling, it is falling apart, it is falling to dust. And it seems like the only person who can save it is this boy, this young man. He has been recruited by this other mysterious gentleman who keeps popping up throughout the book, and our main character doesn't know who this is but becomes increasingly fascinated with him, and most of the book is him trying to get to the Starless Sea but also trying to get to this mysterious man. This book is not short, like This Is How You Lose the Time War. It is very, very, very long. It's a big fat book. This is a great book, I think, to take on holiday with you, to sit down and just read over 1 or 2 days or a week, depending on how fast you are at reading. It is so immersive, it's so beautifully written, it's so intricate and clever. It's got so many wonderful things to say about storytelling and stories and how stories can really affect and help us as we're trying to live our lives. I would say this is probably for sort of 14, 15 plus because it is so thick and intricate. And I would say it is something that is so rewarding if you really sit down and give it time. So that is The Starless Sea, my final pick for this month. And like all the others, I think it is phenomenal, and I think you cannot go wrong if you give this book to a loved one this Christmas. So that is all for me for this year. It has been such an incredible one. It's been such a fun one. And as I've said before, I feel so lucky and so proud to have a community of fans around me in the way that I do, in the way that you are. And thank you again so, so much. So that's all for me for 2019 and all for me for this decade. I will be back in January 2020 to tell you a bit more about how Murder Most Unladylike Book 9 is getting on, a bit more about my World Book Day 2020 short story, The Case of the Drowned Pearl, and a bit more about some of my favourite books. I will be really excited to tell you in January about all of the books I was given this Christmas and the ones I really enjoyed reading. But until then, have a wonderful holiday break. Whether you celebrate Christmas or not, I hope you have a great time with your family, and I will see you again very soon. Goodbye.